guys, sometimes you got to go slow to go fast. I had to do that. I had to stop, be more intentional, and go slow, knowing and seeing that actually paid off in the long run. It's not always easy, but taking the time to ask the questions when you don't have time to ask the questions, put aside the agenda, put aside the topic of the moment, and catch on to the cues of your staff. Like, hey, you're not doing okay. Are you okay? And really, really being observant. Those senses that we have that aren't, looking at somebody's body language, looking at their facial expressions. I had to become more in tune with my staff, because sometimes all I had was with the screen. And for me, it was slow down. It was slow down and listen better, pay attention more, and be more focused. Put the phone away. When we're in this square, this box, this Brady Bunch box, if I look over here, you don't know what I'm looking at. Right. It can feel sad if you are my employee and you are, having this conversation with me and I'm looking this way, and it can totally destroy you. So is really paying very close attention to the nuances of how I carry myself out of courtesy and respect, and the emotion of what the other person's feeling. So I would say my biggest thing is just to slow down.
That's awesome. It's kind of funny that you mentioned it too, right? Because even just the way this works, when I'm talking to you right now in this conference, I'm looking at you, at your picture, your video, I'm looking at your eyes, but I'm away from the camera, right? So I'm not looking at the camera. So just little things like that change in the realm that you're not really kind of aware of. So Anik, what's the biggest lesson you kind of learned in the last couple of years?
Yeah. So for me, the last couple of years have taught me, it kind of reinforced the lesson, and it's really the takeaway from the first half of the book, which is that the direct way to good leadership is being exactly who you are. And I think to the point that Monica had made, over the last couple of years, who you are now gets filtered through computer screens. It has to fit in this little box that I'm looking at in the screen. And people don't have ways, like when you're in the office and you go and you put away the dishes in the break room, people observe who you are. I do that at my house all the time. You can ask my wife whether I'm doing it right or not, but she
may have her own opinion on that.
Exactly. But people can't observe that. And so you made the point of intention. It's taking great intention to be exactly who you are and communicating that, because when you're a leader and you have a mission, especially one like we all do, everyone that's listening to this webinar is in the business of making sick people feel better in one way or another, right? And I think two things get people up in the morning these days. One is that they're working for something important like that, and number two is that the people that lead them are exactly who they say that they are. And I think that those two things, the pandemic really challenged us in terms of trying to convey that in its purest essence. And that's what I've learned, is to just pay extra attention to that. Now that it's just, you can't take for granted that people will just hang around the office with you 40 plus hours a week and figure it out.
Yeah. And probably in some of the roles that we've been in, is probably more than 40 hours a week that they're hanging with us.
Yeah. I'm being generous, I guess, but yeah.
So, it's interesting. So the book I wrote was called The Intentional Leader. And the whole idea behind the intentional leader is that as leaders, we really got to know who we are, right? Before we can, kind of extend our leadership out. We got to lead ourselves first and foremost, and really understanding who we are, how we're wired, what's important to us, what's valuable to us, is something that most people have a loose association with, right? So we understand, we know that we're a good person. We know that we want to be honest. We know that, but we really don't understand what that really, really means and how it applies to the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And we don't intentionally use that to make better decisions. So what I'm hearing from both of you guys that sounds like it's a similar theme, is that we're saying we're not, with the changing of the world, we're not changing who we are. We're changing the way we manifest ourselves out to the people around us. We're finding different ways. We're expanding the way we're going to communicate. We may communicate in a different way. We may be forced to because of Zoom. We may be forced to because of our personality style to kind of reach out in different ways than other leaders. But the real key is that we have to be authentic with ourselves at the end of the day. And I think that's a big theme in your book, Anik, and I know Monica, we've talked a little bit about it, that authenticity is really, really important. People need to see who you are. And every time they see you, they need to see you as that authentic person. my biggest lesson is if you look at my disc profile, I'm a very high I in my natural state. So on a scale of 1 to 100, I'm a 98. So I'm about a high I as you can get. So expressive, I can be very loud at times. So I'm not the quiet necessarily person. One of my biggest challenges is that I think in very abstract thoughts. So I have to be very intentional about how I take those abstract thoughts and turn them into more concrete. What I found in the last couple of years is I don't have the same amount of touch points as I had when I'm in the office every day. And so I'd come into a meeting, I would say, this is what we're going to do. It's kind of abstract. This is kind of a direction we want to go, but all the details may not be filled in. And over the course of the past, what would happen over the hallway conversation, someone walking in my office asking me a question, everything kind of filled itself out. But I found that I had to become a lot more focused on taking that abstract idea and make it very concrete. And I just had a moment that was a real good, we launched a new managed services product about a year ago. And I was walking through the tools with people and it was just not a good experience. It didn't go well. And so we're now on the next generation of that. We're upgrading it. We're launching that again. And I redid the whole way I presented that information to the team. I just spoke to the person who was lead on that. And it was like, that's exactly what we needed. It's exactly the way it was. But I had to really stop to take the moment to slow down, be more concrete, provide the details, think about who the audience was in a more concrete way to be able to deliver that. So for me, that's a big lesson I've learned in the last year.